What's up, folks, and welcome back to Dyce Reacts World. We are staying in Australia tonight. We are going to be checking out Hypothetical History's Guide to Australia's Special Forces. Yes, very much excited to check this one out. We ain't going to waste no more time. We're just going to get right into it, folks. We're going to get right into it. Oh yeah.
Australia's Special Forces community are, perhaps, the most prestigious element of the ADF. Special Forces have been at the forefront of Australia's contribution to the global war on terror, seeing extensive action across the Middle East. Although this magnificent combat record has been tarnished by accusations of unlawful killings in Afghanistan, specifically by members of the Special Air Service Regiment, the ADF Special Forces legacy is still one of professionalism, gallantry and excellence, a capability that remains one of the best in the world. In 2003, with the growing burden placed on Australia's Special Forces community, the ADF Special Forces units were placed under a unified command structure, the Special Operations Command. SOCOMD now contains all of the Army's elite Special Forces units. It is typically commanded by a Major General and has a strength of over 2,800, including reserves. The Special Operations Command order of battle is as follows: the Special Air Service Regiment, 1st Commando Regiment, 2nd Commando Regiment, the Special Operations Engineer Regiment, which provides specialist nuclear, chemical and biological response, the Special Operations Logistics Squadron, and, effectively, the 171st Aviation Squadron, which provides dedicated helicopter support for SOCOMD. Special Operations Command is, effectively, a 4th Brigade of the regular Australian Army. Perhaps the most famous unit in the Australian Army is the Special Air Service Regiment, or SASR. The Special Air Service was created during the early years of the Malayan Emergency, after witnessing the success of British SAS in action. In 1957, the first SAS company was raised, and by the Vietnam War, 3 Sabre squadrons were in service. In Vietnam, SASR members claimed some 492 enemy killed, with the loss of only 3 men to combat.
Wow.
Currently, the regiment is organised around 4 Sabre squadrons. Each squadron is similar to a company in strength, between 90 and 100 men, and is composed of 3 troops: water, freefall and vehicle. Each one of these troops is composed of 4 patrols, with 5 to 6 men each. The patrol is the primary unit of the SASR, as these small teams can operate in hostile terrain independently for extended periods of time. Deep reconnaissance is the SASR's forte, either on foot or, in the classic style of Paddy Mayne and the original SAS, in long-range vehicles. In 2003, an SASR vehicle-mounted patrol penetrated 600 kilometers into Iraq and was, for several days, the closest Allied element to Baghdad, gathering intelligence on key roads and airbases. One squadron, on rotation, mans the Tactical Assault Group West, which is one of Australia's 2 dedicated counter-terrorist elements. The other major element of Australia's Special Forces community are the Commando Regiments. The 2nd Commando Regiment was, originally, 4 RAR Commando, although this unit was renamed in 2009. The Australian Commandos can trace their lineage back to the independent companies of World War II, formations of around 250 men that operated in the jungles of New Guinea and Timor, often for years, fighting a guerrilla war against the Japanese. There are 2 Commando Regiments. The first is largely a reserve unit which is designed to support the primary formation, the 2nd. 2 Commando is a standard commando battalion and is composed of 4 commando companies, a signal regiment, and logistics and support companies. The reserve 1st Commando Regiment provides an additional 2 commando companies.
We'll take a pause here. Just listen to what he's saying. I'm just trying to figure out when was the last time Australia were in like a major war, and yeah, and how frequent do they have to use military like tactics in order to basically like insurgencies, or teaming up with allies to on certain missions. Yeah, Australia is not a country that I think about when it comes to those type of things. Sometimes you forget that those countries also have military power as well. You know, military defenses. You don't think of that. Sometimes you just only think of the countries that's the usual, basically the usual suspects. You know, it's common. Yeah, you don't really hear Australia, and I'm just taken aback by what's being said there. Quite interesting.
It provides an additional 2 commando companies. Unlike the Special Air Service Regiment, the commandos far more typically operate in larger units, from platoons to companies, as opposed to 6-man patrols. They are, arguably, more optimized to take larger scale offensive action, such as seizing air bases or conducting raids, than the kind of deep, covert recon the SAS typically specializes in. However, both the SASR and Commando regiments are able to conduct the full spectrum of Special Forces roles. Indeed, throughout many operations in Afghanistan, elements of the 2 units routinely fought side by side. In June 2010, an Australian Special Forces task group launched an offensive into the Shah-Wai-Kot district of Kandahar province. This operation was focused on the village of Tizak, which was a Taliban stronghold and had been in their possession since 1995. On the 10th of June, Alpha Company of the 2nd Commando Regiment made a helicopter assault on the village, where they came under intense machine gun fire in the landing zone. After a day of fighting, intelligence indicated that Taliban forces were massing for a counterattack, so the commandos were reinforced by a troop from 2nd Squadron SASR. After 5 days of continuous battle, the badly mauled Taliban forces withdrew from the area, leaving the Australians in command of the village and surrounding high ground. Around 100 Taliban are believed to have been killed for the loss of only 1 Australian and 1 Afghan soldier, both of whom were wounded. The Shah-Wai-Kot offensive has proven to be an exemplary Special Forces operation, showcasing the aggression, adaptability and tactical skill of the units involved. Both the SASR and 2 Commando man the 2 tactical assault groups, TAG East and TAG West. The tactical assault groups are Australia's dedicated counter-terrorism units and are the only major domestic roles for the Commandos and SASR. The tactical assault groups are focused on high-end counter-terrorism on land or sea, and routinely train in retaking aircraft, buildings and ships. They are the units that provide tactical response for high-profile events such as the G20 or Olympics. In 2003, elements from both units conducted a heliborne assault on the North Korean vessel Pongsu, which was smuggling heroin into Australia. The operators fast-roped onto the vessel from Black Hawk helicopters and quickly stormed the bridge. The vessel was confiscated and later sunk by RW.
Guys, I got goosebumps just watching that scene right there. Sounds like a scene from a movie, man. Man, those guys are real quick.
Heroin into Australia. The operators fast-roped onto the vessel from Black Hawk helicopters and quickly stormed the bridge. The vessel was confiscated and later sunk by RAAF F-111Cs with a pair of GBU-10 Paveway 2 laser-guided bombs. The other major elements of Special Operations Command are the Special Operations Engineer Regiment, or SOER, and the 171st Aviation Squadron. SOER provides a dedicated nuclear, chemical and biological response team for both domestic and international contingencies, although this is now integrated with the tactical assault groups. These engineers also provide dedicated mobility, survivability and explosive support to Australian Special Forces, and routinely had elements deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. The 171st Army Aviation Squadron is not formally part of Special Operations Command. However, it provides dedicated helicopter support to Special Forces. The squadron is still equipped with S-78 Black Hawks, although the MRH-90 Taipan will be introduced in the coming years. In November 2020, the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force published a report into alleged war crimes by a small number of SAS operators. It was found that over several years, some 39 Afghan prisoners had been killed. These killings, often done to blood new patrol members within a specific squadron, were deemed to be illegal by the Inspector General. None occurred during the heat of battle, and none could be justified in the name of operational security. They have been referred to the Australian Federal Police for investigation. There was, however, no evidence that this behaviour was more widespread within the regiment. As a permanent mark of shame, the regiment's 2nd Sabre Squadron will be permanently struck from the Army's Order of Battle, and a new formation will be raised in its place. The report found that, within the Special Air Service Regiment, a dangerous culture of elitism, arrogance and entitlement had developed. This included a toxic competition between the SAS and commandos, which only deepened this sense of entitlement. To rectify this toxic organisational culture, the Commando and SAS initial training programs will be amalgamated into a single Special Forces training scheme, with operators spending a year training together before being posted to their respective regiments. This will be a substantial change from the two distinct training programs ran by both
proposed and current. So there's a current change going on as to how they go about doing the special forces. Yeah, but you find that, well, I would say those kind of behavior happens with, in terms of ego and power. You know, the more power you have, the more corrupt it's gonna be when people are, you know, going and doing their own thing. You know, with power comes corruption, and with ultimate power comes ultimate corruptions. You know, utmost corruption. So I mean, you expect things like that to happen when you in, especially those kind of fields where you have a control or a hold on, you know, certain people. You know, those kind of characteristics starts to unveil. Now, doesn't necessarily mean those individuals that are doing that are changing. It's just with that position, it showcases who they truly are. It doesn't change them, you know. So I understand this. Just you know, sometimes it's just human nature, but a change was definitely needed as to how they go about it.
Programs will be amalgamated into a single Special Forces training scheme, with operators spending a year training together before being posted to their respective regiments. This will be a substantial change from the two distinct training programs ran by both units. Nonetheless, even with this shameful episode now a part of its history, Australia's Special Forces are one of the most effective offensive tools in the ADF, and gives Australia a significant competitive advantage over other regional powers. They are, truly, the tip of the spear, elite operators that have been at the forefront of every conflict Australia has waged over the last 50 years, and that legacy of sacrifice, gallantry and quality remains intact despite the dishonourable actions of a few of its members. It is, in the words of the Chief of Defence, General Angus Campbell, a magnificent capability, dedicated to martial excellence and professionalism, and remains one of the most capable Special Forces communities in the world.
I wouldn't doubt that from some of the statistics he said there, and the way that they go about executing those missions. Man, they're certainly elite. And like I said, it's a shame that I mean, you never think about Australia as a military nation, and it's just how I see it. Like, when you think about countries, you only think about when they're in actual like war, but when it comes to defending your country, skill set doesn't necessarily has to be always on how I see it. Like, sometimes you hear about countries and sometimes it's always in the negative, in terms of being in war or being in conflict all the time, in order to determine that you're good at it, you or they're elite forces or whatnot. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It all comes from the training. What kind of training is in the country, and the technology and how they go about executing those missions. You know, sometimes we just say countries that are, you know, historically of the most common wars, we think about them as elite, but we don't think about other countries like Australia having a good, strong military presence in the world. Yeah, and it's an eye opener. It's an eye opener, but you can't take away the fact that, I mean, like, a few bad apples spoiling the bunch. You know, you're gonna find out in every country, in every, not just military, but in every kind of field. You know, they're always gonna have a few corrupt people. You know, yes, at the top. So that's just the nature of it. Yeah. Shout out to the Australians, guys that did a good job. Yeah. If you want to see that long drawn outro that I do, hit me over on Dyce Reacts, where I do music reactions. Yes. This way I'm going to be making my exit. So until next time, peace out.